My name is Barbara, I'm 31. At Sunday dinner, I hoped for one kind word. Instead, my parents told me not to come to my brother's wedding. The room froze. I stayed silent. But silence never means weakness. The clink of silverware sounded louder than any voice, each strike against porcelain marking the moment my family carved me out. The chandelier swayed overhead, light trembling on the tablecloth, as if even the room wanted to recoil from what had been said. My brother leaned back in his chair, lips curling in that satisfied grin of the golden child. My father shifted his glass, staring into the wine as though nothing had happened. My mother simply adjusted her napkin with hands too steady, as if dismissing me was no different than passing salt across the table. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to pause. If you're watching this, leave a comment and tell me where you're from. And if you've ever had a family member push you too far, subscribe, because you'll want to see how this unfolds. A week earlier, my mother had called me the reliable one, placing a stack of invoices in my hands, the florist, the bakery, even the deposit for the hotel. "We can trust you to handle it," she said. That detail clung to me as I sat at the table now, the words of dismissal ringing in my chest. Reliable enough to sign checks, not worthy enough to share a meal. I didn't argue. I didn't protest. I watched their faces. My mother's eyes glimmered with satisfaction, as if she had delivered some final verdict. My father's silence weighed more heavily than any insult, because silence is never neutral. It sides with power. My brother leaned forward, basking in the quiet approval of being chosen. I sat there, my palms damp against my lap, forcing my voice into stillness. Finally, I whispered, "Is that all?" The words slid into the space like a knife across glass. Nobody answered. Nobody needed to. The air thickened heavy with a humiliation I refused to let them see. My chair scraped softly against the floor as I stood. I didn't rush. I didn't slam doors. I gathered my bag, slipped my coat across my shoulders, and walked toward the hall. My mother glanced up, expecting me to beg. I didn't. My brother smirked again, certain he'd won. I didn't give him the satisfaction of a second look. The door closed behind me, the latch clicking like a final punctuation mark. Outside, the night pressed cool against my face, stars veiled behind clouds. The silence followed me, not as emptiness, but as something alive, pulsing, waiting. They thought they had erased me with a sentence, but erasure is never that simple. Something had shifted, a thread pulled loose from the tapestry of their perfect dinner. I felt it in the steady rhythm of my footsteps, in the way my breath no longer caught in my throat. They had asked me to vanish. And one day soon I would, but not the way they imagined. The street outside hummed with life cars, rolling past laughter, spilling from an open window somewhere above. None of it touched me. I walked slow, the echo of my mother's voice following with every step. "The best gift is to stay away." The words clung like smoke, but beneath them another rhythm began to grow. Not anger, not despair. Something quieter, heavier. At home, I set my keys on the counter and let the silence stretch. The apartment felt small, but it was mine, walls lined with books I had chosen, curtains I had hung. I ran a finger along the edge of the kitchen table, steadying myself. Their faces still hovered in memory, my father avoiding my eyes, my brother's crooked smile, my mother's calculated calm. Each detail carved the wound deeper, but each one also sharpened me. I poured a glass of water, watched the surface still, and whispered to the empty room, "You think I'll vanish? You'll see." The glass trembled faintly in my hand, but my voice did not. Later, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the papers tucked neatly in my drawer. Receipts, deeds, bank forms, the things they had trusted me with because I was the responsible one. They had mocked that very steadiness tonight, forgetting it gave me a kind of power they couldn't imagine. The image of the dinner table returned unbidden silver, glinting, a spoon clattering to the plate, no one reaching to pick it up. That sound stayed with me, not as humiliation anymore, but as a reminder. They had left something lying there unattended, believing it worthless. But I saw it for what it was, the first crack in their perfect story. I lay back, the ceiling fan spinning above shadows, circling. My chest was no longer heavy. I closed my eyes, knowing tomorrow would not begin with weakness. It would begin with silence, sharpened into something they could not ignore. Morning light filtered through my blinds, painting thin, golden stripes across the floor. I held my coffee mug with both hands, letting the steam curl against my face, trying to anchor myself. But the quiet was restless. My phone blinked on the counter, one message after another, stacking like dominoes. The first was from my mother: return what you stole or don't show your face at the wedding. I set the mug down the porcelain, clicking faintly against the wood. Another text followed from my brother. You'll regret this. No one wanted you there anyway. His words should have stung, but they didn't. They settled into me like dust on a windowsill, visible but weightless. I scrolled further, then placed the phone face down. A call broke the silence. I answered. The florist's voice trembled. Mrs. Carraway, your payment declined. We can't release the flowers until it's resolved. I murmured thanks, hung up, and scribbled the words on a scrap of paper. 10 minutes later, another call, the caterer, apologetic but firm. We'll have to cancel if payment isn't cleared tonight. The hotel manager's voice came last, polished but urgent. Your suite balance is overdue. Without settlement, we cannot proceed with setup. I walked to a cafe nearby, choosing a seat by the window. The cup in front of me grew cold as I stirred it aimlessly. Outside, families moved in clusters, parents adjusting children's jackets, siblings laughing as they bumped into each other. I pressed my palm flat against the glass. That life had never been mine. Maybe it never would be. But what I had now was something different, silence that cut sharper than their voices. I lifted the phone again, typed my first reply since the dinner. Just one line: I won't be showing my face. But my absence will cost you. I hit send and watched my reflection in the window, familiar yet suddenly changed. By late afternoon, the rehearsal dinner was supposed to begin in one of those glittering downtown hotels my family adored. Marble floors, chandeliers, staff moving like shadows. I didn't go. I didn't need to. But I made sure I was present in the cracks, in the silence, in the way the evening unraveled without me. The first call came at 4. The florist again, this time almost frantic. We can't deliver without funds. The arrangements are being held. Then the caterer: we're sorry, but the account on file isn't valid anymore. Service will be cancelled unless resolved tonight. The hotel followed shortly after, sir, without immediate payment. We cannot proceed with the ballroom setup. One after another, the pillars of their perfect night collapsed. I stayed in a quiet bookstore cafe just 2 blocks away, a cup of tea cooling beside me, my phone glowing every few minutes with another notification. I didn't rush to answer. I let the messages stack. At 7, a cousin who didn't know the truth sent me a photo: guests standing awkwardly in the hotel lobby, trays of food being wheeled back into the kitchen. My mother's face pale and tight as she argued with staff, my father red-faced, barking into his phone, and my brother, the golden groom, jaw clenched, fury radiating off him. I leaned back in my chair, not smiling, not gloating. This wasn't joy. It was something heavier, sharper: justice, maybe. For years I had been the quiet servant at that table, the one erased with a single sentence. Now they were the ones gasping for air. Another message buzzed. From my brother: you're destroying everything. You think this makes you stronger? It proves why no one wanted you here. The words flickered, then faded. For once, they didn't chain me down. They belonged to him, not me. I closed my eyes, listening to the low murmur of the cafe. Tomorrow was the wedding, and tomorrow would be the fall. The wedding morning broke with a heavy stillness, the kind of silence that arrives just before a storm. I brewed coffee, slowly savoring the calm until my phone began to vibrate. 1 message, then 10, then 30. By the time I sat at the table, it was a flood. The florist had withdrawn completely. The caterer announced they would not serve. The hotel locked the ballroom doors, refusing to set a single table. Every vendor in town had caught the same whisper: the Carraways don't pay their bills. I scrolled through each frantic text as if flipping pages of a book I'd already read. My brother's fiancé wrote, "Please, Barbara, just fix this. I'll do anything." The golden girl who once looked at me as though I were gum beneath her heel now begged through cracked words. Then my mother: "You're humiliating us. People are talking. You'll regret this." Her venom hadn't changed, but the edge of fear was new. My father's message landed last. We know it was you. Whatever satisfaction you're getting won't last. Families survive storms, outcasts don't. The words should have pierced me. Instead, they drew laughter out of me, deep, guttural, unexpected. Because for once it wasn't my storm to carry. It was theirs. Entirely theirs. By noon, a cousin sent me a photo. The bride stood outside the hotel in her gown veil clutched in her fists, streaks of mascara cutting down her cheeks. Guests lingered whispering in small knots. My brother's jaw looked like stone, every line carved in fury. My parents flanked him frantic and hollow. I saved the photo not as a trophy, but as proof that I had never been the weak one, that their dismissal had not erased me but forged me sharper. Yet even as satisfaction pulsed through me, another thought surfaced. Was this enough? To watch them stumble in their own ruin? Or was there one final note to write something undeniable, something that would make the silence roar? That afternoon, I opened my laptop. The apartment sale contract blinked on the screen, the cursor waiting for my signature. One click, and everything they thought was theirs would be gone. I hovered for a moment, not out of hesitation but ritual, a pause before closing a door forever. Then I signed. By noon, the agent confirmed the sale. Funds rerouted, the Caraway's safety net had vanished in a puff of legal smoke. But I wasn't finished. Revenge, I realized, wasn't just about destruction. It was about exposure. In a neat folder, I compiled receipts, bank statements, proof of every dollar funneled into my brother's wedding while debts piled up elsewhere, loans taken in my name, checks I'd signed without a thank you, years of being the reliable one used and discarded. I attached the files to an email, the subject line short and sharp, "The truth you won't hear at the wedding." One click sent to every guest, every relative, every colleague my parents had paraded before. The replies came fast: shock, pity, disbelief. Whispered suspicions now had names and evidence. My phone buzzed relentlessly. My mother. How dare you? Do you know what you've done? My brother. You've ruined us. I hope you're proud. My father didn't write, only called. I let it ring. That evening, I walked past the hotel. The grand doors were locked, chandeliers dark, only a few wilted petals scattered on the steps. For the first time in years, I felt no weight pressing on my chest. No need for their approval. Just air-clean, sharp mine. But as I turned away, I knew this silence would not last. People who lose everything don't vanish quietly. They cling, they beg, they break. And I could already feel it. The knock would come. By dusk, the knock finally came. 3 sharp raps against the wood, not polite, not patient, demanding. I stood still in the kitchen, the kettle hissing softly on the stove, letting the sound drown out everything else. Then came my mother's voice, muffled through the door. "Barbara, open this door. We are still your family." The words almost made me laugh. Still your family. As if family meant erasing someone and expecting them to return when convenient. Another knock followed, harder this time. My brother's voice cut in rough with anger. "Enough with the games. You've made your point. Fix this now." I walked slowly to the door, each step steady. When I finally turned the lock and pulled it open, they stood clustered in the hallway. My mother's lipstick smudged her hair, no longer perfectly set. My father's shoulders slumped, tie loosened, the sharpness gone from his posture. My brother's shirt wrinkled, fury burning in his eyes but offering nothing else. The golden family dulled. "What do you want?" I asked, my tone flat. My father's voice cracked as he spoke. "You've taken everything. We're ruined. Do you understand? People are talking. We can't even." His words collapsed under their own weight. My mother tried to hold his arm, her face pale, her whisper trembling. "But we're your blood." I leaned against the frame, eyes steady. "Blood doesn't excuse betrayal. You didn't lose a daughter. You threw one away. I just made sure you felt the loss." The silence that followed was thick, pressing down on all of us. For once, they had no quick retort, no polished words, only the hollow echo of their choices. My brother muttered a curse, but even he didn't step closer. Their pride had already cracked, their grip on me was gone. I let the moment linger, then shifted my hand back to the door. Leave. This chapter doesn't belong to you anymore. I closed the door slowly, the lock clicking into place like a seal on a tomb. Inside, the kettle had gone silent. Only the hum of the city seeped through the windows, a steady pulse against the quiet. I stood there for a long moment, my palms still on the door, until the tremor in my chest finally eased. The next morning I woke not to dread, but to a clean kind of silence like freshly fallen snow. I brewed coffee, carried it to the balcony, and let the city stretch beneath me. For the first time, the sounds below didn't feel like a world I was locked out of. They felt like a world I could step into on my own terms. The apartment sale funds sat secure in my account, not as revenge money but as seed money, the start of something unburdened. I opened my laptop and drafted plans for a small business, something steady, something mine. Every keystroke felt like stitching a wound closed. Meanwhile, whispers spread. I didn't have to search for them. They found me in texts and hushed updates. Guests who once idolized my parents now traded pitying looks. The perfect Caraway family was no longer untouchable. Their empire of appearances had collapsed into rubble. And the sweetest part, I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to gloat. I simply stepped aside and let truth do its work. One evening, I walked past the hotel again. The chandelier was dark, the lobby nearly empty, petals still wilting near the entrance. My reflection caught in the glass. I didn't see the disposable daughter anymore. I saw a woman carrying her own light. They wanted me gone, and now I am, but not erased. Reborn. Their son's wedding would be remembered not for vows or music, but for absence collapse, and the daughter they tried to discard. Me, I wasn't bitter, I was free, because the truest revenge isn't fire or fury, it's peace, a peace they will never touch. Sometimes the loudest answer is no answer at all. A closed door, a steady gaze, the quiet step forward, those linger longer than shouted words. Dignity doesn't beg to be seen. It simply shines, and in time, the world has no choice but to notice.